Welcome to the Blue Feathered Stories. I'm your hostess, Blue Thunderbird Woman, also known as Carol. Well, we have had some interesting episodes around the money series, and we continue as we move through having these really deep conversations with some beautiful soul sisters talking about our money stories and where they have taken us, where we are today, and how we are moving through them. So today, Elsa Janney is not a stranger to our audience. She's been here before, and we're so happy to have her back with us again. And Elsa, welcome. So excited that you could make time to be in our sacred space together. And so, as you know, you and I have had many side conversations about money stories, and I really feel that there's this energetic urgence for, and I feel it's mostly around women for whatever reason, that we need to step into and take the power away from in the way in which we have given power to money, right? We've given so much of our power away to money, and it's time to take that power back. And I always say that money in the hands of women who care, that are heart-centered, can move mountains. But we all have to go back and we have to heal those money stories. So welcome into this space. I'm so glad you're here, and I can't wait to get started.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I love these conversations, and this is one of, if not like my first, like public conversation about it, if you will. So that is a stretch for me to speak my stories about money publicly. So very excited for that stretch and for a little bit of discomfort, because I know speaking it and sharing it with you and your community is all the comfort and safety that I need to be able to fully express. So very excited to be here.
Yeah, awesome. So the first question I have for you that we can dive into is, like, when you go back into childhood and looking at your surroundings and, the adults in your life, and as that child observing and being that sponge and taking all these things into the unconscious mind, what were the stories around money at that time?
Hmm. Well, I definitely have a common money story around. I was definitely raised and told people with money are greedy assholes, they're bad, they're materialistic, and being materialistic sucks, and be grateful for what you've got. Um, but one of the ones that is, semi-unique to me, and just at least, not to say I'm not the only one with it, but my dad's side of the family, my paternal side, he has two younger brothers, and they are quite well off. And they have a lot of stress in their lives. And they have a lot more gray hair than my dad. And they're way younger than him. And growing up, I'd hear my mother say, look at how having money has hurt their health, has affected their aging. Having money gives you gray hair and makes you stressed.
Wow, that's quite the message, right?
And I always like to preface to, just from a neuroscience standpoint, that when you're a kid, shit is literally black and white. Like if you hear one thing, there's no room for gray.
Mm.
Like it is, you hear one thing and it makes that true, and it makes the opposite of it untrue. Like period. That's just what happens with the neuroscience as a child. Them's the rules.
Yeah.
Because I've had to have this conversation with my mother. When she's heard me say things about my money story, she can get defensive. I
Mm.
didn't mean it that way. That's not what I meant to say. I know now I know. But guess what? As a 3 or 4 year old, that's not the point.
Yeah.
The point is, I heard you say having money and desiring money makes you unhealthy, stressed, and ages you.
Mm. Mhm.
And so obviously that's not something I want. And so you reject money. And because health is very important to me, we were raised to be health conscious, good food choices, exercise, kind of those basic, physical awareness of what it is to be healthy. But then when I was 16 years old, I was diagnosed with celiac disease. And I remember being in the doctor's office looking at my endoscopy results, which they go in with a scope and check out your small intestine. And my doctor goes, "Yeah, you have celiac disease, which is basically the high paycheck diet." So
Never
basically, I have to be,
described that way.
yeah. So I have to
Yeah.
be rich because at that point, and still, gluten-free food was getting quite attractive in the diet and fad world. And luckily, I had to eat gluten-free, so it was available to me, but it was way more expensive. And so the high paycheck diet. But in my mind, I'm sitting there going, well, fuck, being rich makes me unhealthy, but I'm already unhealthy. What am I supposed to do with money? How can I feed myself and nourish myself if making money is going to make me sick, but I have to have money in order to eat?
Wow. That's a bit of a
A
dilemma.
chaotic confusion and just like
Yeah.
basically sitting there with you know, two boxes, both of them saying you have to have money, and you just kind of like, I don't know. A lot of I don't know energy. And I recently said to someone, you know how they always say like no is a complete sentence? So is I don't know.
Hmm. Hmm.
And there is obviously very different embodiments of I don't know.
Yeah.
And I have from a very inauthentic, fearful, scarcity, external validation, victimhood, ego space said, I don't know with money my entire life.
That's
Mm-hmm.
huge. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So much power, right, is given to
Yeah.
this thing called money. So
Mm-hmm.
much power.
So much power.
Yeah. And, it was initially created to, well, it is a neutral energy. However, humanity has given it so much power, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that we take a moment, a breath to sit back and until we have these really brutally honest conversations to realize how much of our power we give away to something that humans created.
Mm-hmm.
Like we created that stuff. It doesn't grow on the trees, like people like to say.
Mm-hmm.
Honey doesn't grow on the trees. So you're right, they don't grow on the trees.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a hard space to get into. So that's like around the age of 16, 17. It was kind of
Mm-hmm.
like time
Yep.
frame. So as you moved on in life in your early adulthood then, did that story embellish? Did it
Oh
change?
yeah.
Did it shift?
It really began to root into shame. Um, I remember, and so there's that. I kind of have two primary threads of my money story, and that is one of them is having money makes you unhealthy and sick. Well, I'm already sick. What am I supposed to do? And then the other one is you're poor and people don't want to be friends because you're poor.
Ah,
And I remember very specifically being a little kid. Like literally for listeners, I'm sitting in my childhood living room right now, and I was standing right there
yeah.
pointing to the spot. And my mom, I made a comment about, well, like, why don't they want to hang out with me? Because I had, hard time socially as a youth. And she said something along the lines of, well, they're rich and they're snobby, and you're fun and less wealthy and down to earth.
Mm,
And I was like, but that doesn't make me unlovable. It doesn't make me unfun to hang out with, right? And
yeah.
so apparently, in my mind, of course, that's what solidified that it did. And that just kind of became, again, another big money story. And it's funny too, because all the way through my adulthood, I've had many relationships where I've actually been friends with very wealthy people, but I'm the poor one, and that's the role I then occupy. But there's this one story too, and as you had sent me these questions beforehand, I was reflecting on there's those big moments when like you have that visceral response to something about money. And I was 18 years old And I ran away from Montana and I went to California for my first year of school and decided to really immerse myself in wealth and surround myself with people from Southern California. How we learn, right? I like to learn the hard way.
Mhm.
And I'm down there and most of my clothes are thrifted, we grew up, middle class. We didn't have anything above our means, but we still always had what we needed.
Yeah.
Um, and but I'm down in Southern California now all of a sudden with like thrifted wool sweaters from Walmart that I fucking love. Sorry, not even Walmart, Goodwill. And I got teased a lot for it. People very jokingly, oh, where'd you get that? Like from, Bill Cosby or something or blah, just snarky remarks. And then people are always just talking about their daddy's money and his cars and their cars and stuff. And I just am like, this is so over my head. I don't even know why everyone's discussing what their dad does for work. It's not the type of conversation I desired to have. But I remember my like first week there, my roommate and I went to Target to get some just stuff. And I had enough money to pay for what I paid for, but I had, bought a lot. And because too, I remember I bought some sports bras, I bought some workout clothes and, full price at Target. And we're like on our way home and my mom calls me up and goes, "What the fuck did you just buy?" She had access to my account at 18 years old. She could see how much I spent. And I was like, I just remember crumpling like a piece of paper in someone's hand,
Mhm.
being so embarrassed, so ashamed that like fuck, I just wanted to feel for a second like I could fit in with these people and buy some things. And then I was so shamed for it.
Mm.
And I will like mom never taught me to, or neither of my parents taught us how to save, how to make money and make money work for us. They only ever said, don't go into debt. Well, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how not to do that. That's a skill that does need to be taught. And yeah, sure, simple math is one thing, but to actually apply it to your life, very different. And again, someone who math is not an energy I enjoy occupying. I was like, well, I have money, so I can spend it, right? And I did, and I was shamed really fucking bad for it. And so that just kind of was like, oh, now if I want money, and I'll be like aware that I was seeking this from an external validation point and using money to self-soothe for a second. But if I wanted to be a peer amongst these people of wealthy lifestyles, oh, I can't because now I'm going to be shamed by my family for it.
Mm. You're almost in that space where you're shamed for, um, shamed for purchasing the items at full price or whatever, but then also shamed from the group of friends
Mm-hmm.
that,
Yeah.
uh, that you don't have
Yeah.
whatever the styles, the latest, name brands or whatever, like,
Yeah.
So it didn't, it's kind of in a being in a situation where it doesn't really matter what you do. You don't,
Yeah.
you don't win.
Yeah. That's oof. Yeah. At the root of both of those stories, it's I lose.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And in through that process, you lose a lot of self-worth as well. And I think that's money, that's the power of money. That's what it's come to, that it literally sucks up our self-worth. Like
Yeah.
that's something that we have control over, but we don't know that we have control over that. We don't know
Yeah.
that we can take power away from money. We just know that it's this entity, this energy, and that we get sucked into that vortex or whatever. And it's just like it just takes it all. And it's like the number one reason for stress, for all kinds of hurts and pains and sufferings and everything, right? Like it's like
Mm-hmm.
it really is the villain.
Mm-hmm. It's like one of
It's
the
the
top three reasons for divorce. It's like,
Yeah, it's the perpetrator,
yeah.
right? And so when we look at it from sort of that bird's eye view, we look down at this whole money story for the collective, it's like it's the perpetrator, and we continue to be when we continue to buy into the power that it has, we continue to be the victim of that triangle of that story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow, okay. So now like you're in university and then now you're moving through life and what
Yep.
next happens in the money story? How does it evolve?
Well, I disassociate. Something I used to be very good at and very skilled at doing was just, all right, if I don't know, if I always lose, then I might as well just avoid it at all costs. And so I did. Like I would get a job in the service industry, whether it was selling shoes at a store in Missoula that I worked at. When I moved back from California, I only did 1 year down there instead of get me the fuck out of here, and came back to Montana and yeah, worked in a shoe store, started, waiting tables, barista, bartender, just very minimum wage jobs. And it's funny though, because even like upon deeper reflection, all of these jobs, I'd get more, whether it was commission, tips, whatnot, by being hot, being nice, and being pretty.
Hmm.
Like you're a hot chick behind a bar and you flash that pretty smile. You're, a hot chick in a shoe store and someone walks in, you can sell them a bunch of pairs of shoes by flashing them a smile. And that's another story that I've had to experience and adapt with my body image and my relationship with my body and things like that. And stuff. And so again, like I'll just, I mean, we all know this. This is part of the collective money story too, is sex sells. Like being hot sells, being pretty is gonna get you more money if you're attractive, things like that. And yeah, I mean, still though, I only ever made what I made enough to cover what I had to cover. And so I was always at like zero. Or sometimes I'd have to tell my friend for like the rent check, one of my roommates, hey, don't cash that until such and such. Hey, don't cash that until, next week or something. Um, or whatnot and stuff. And just I couldn't try to make more money because I was already at school and worked 7 days a week. And it was like, well, there's the glass ceiling. I just am always at zero,
Mm-hmm.
unhappy with what I'm doing, but also enjoying it because I get worth by people appreciating how pretty I am. Okay. And I can make them smile because I serve them food or drinks that are enjoyable to them and just kind of disassociating and getting those dopamine hits where I could. It just, yeah. And I remember a couple of years ago, mom asked me, like, do you care about money? Because, I'm sitting here broke and stuff. And she's like, well, are you trying to make more money? I'm also a college dropout, by the way, people. And so I never finished a degree. And that was a thorn for a while in my mother's and my relationship, but also just kind of her, like, desire for me to have an easier time in life and be able to get a job that paid more and stuff and things. But also, anytime I had a job that did pay more, I got really good at it. And then I had higher ups in the company be upset that I was as good at my job as I was. And then I'd get fired or let go, or I'd end up quitting because I was being treated like shit. And so, just again, the power of money, even from, at this point, too, I'm not in my shamanic work or my energetic work and stuff, and so not really having the languaging for it, but completely understanding the manipulation of money and just knowing I didn't want to interact with it in that way.
Yeah.
And so when mom asked me, do you care about money? Absolutely I do. And I don't want to interact with money the way that the rest of the world interacts with it. And so I just don't, and I disassociate and I do what I have to, but other than that, I kind of pretend it doesn't exist.
It's kind of like the ostrich that buries their head in the sand. If
Yep.
I do that, then it'll just go away.
Mhm. I have a very anxious, avoidant relationship with money.
Yeah, yeah. So what are the things, so today, like where do you stand with it? Have a lot of those things been sort of healed? They're still a work in process. You're still peeling the layers of the onion back. Like where are you with it now?
Always more layers, always more layers. I would say that, a lot of it's healed, and I can look at a lot of these stories and go, thank you, that's not mine anymore.
Mm.
And I still have to go and embody a new relationship with money. And I do desire. Yeah, I would say I still desperately desire a new relationship with money, which desperation is not always the best energy to bring into something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but having a lot of compassion for myself
Mm.
and a lot of gratitude for the experience I've had in life. Like, I mean, again, I'd be homeless if I wasn't able to live with my parents right now
Mhm.
because I don't have money to afford a place to live. There's a lot of basic necessities that most other people have to pay: food, groceries, rent, et cetera, et cetera. Right now, I don't have to pay those, and I could not be more grateful. And this, still isn't where I want to be. I don't want to be living with my parents. I don't want to be broke. I don't want to have all this debt, and recently I've actually been trying to, with big pentacle energy, really sit with my finances and my relationship to it and go, I and just kind of radical accountability and responsibility. I've avoided this my whole life, and now I do have to look at it, and step out of victimhood and let myself feel that from being pissed off and mad at myself, from being a little bit self-deprecating, because that's okay too, and then going through the whole gambit of the grief, steps,
Mhm.
and going, all right, and now let's accept new game plan, new space to occupy with safety, love, and trust as an open, empty plate and buffet to interact with money with and play with. I'm a very playful person, and that's a space with money that I'm trying to begin to occupy. And I've heard a lot of people in my life go, like, money's a game, money's a game, you do this and it's that. And again, I hear the way they speak to money being a game, and I don't like that. It doesn't resonate. And so holding money neutrally and saying, all right, money, if you're neutral, how can I be neutral?
Mm.
And how can I play with you in a way that is fun, that is playful, that is, you know, reciprocal exchange for all involved?
Mhm.
And because I also, too, I have a very deep and strong connection to my animal self, my nature self, my ancestral self. And so I sit there and, like, I'm like, can't we all just go back to bartering? Can't we all go back to just all of that?
Yeah.
And I can actually look at that now and go, yes, that would be lovely. And you're not stepping up. You're saying
Mm.
that'd be easier because
Mhm.
money's really hard for you.
Mhm. Mhm.
But aren't the things that are hard for us kind of some of the things that we can end up being the best at
Mhm.
if we put in the effort, the determination, the will, the motivation with integrity and authenticity to ourselves? I'm not going to like push myself and do it from, a toxic masculine, not just a toxic human,
Yeah.
masculine and feminine, both toxic human way of the norm of making money, the hustle, the grind, all that stuff, because fuck no, I ain't got time for that shit.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the belief system is that we feel that we need to work hard for money, that it needs to be hard, that it needs
Hmm.
to be. In fact, it's actually like if you're suffering, I've had this conversation with a few other soul sisters. It's like if you're suffering, it's actually looked great upon, especially in the religious context. It's like, yes, like how what's the word? Pious? How
Yeah.
pious to be in that state of, oh, they work hard and oh, they're suffering. It's a great thing. And
Yeah.
I just don't think that in the context of whatever your word is, creator, universe, God, whatever. I just don't think that that's what we were sent here to do. Those are just human stories to control, to manipulate, and that could be a whole podcast in itself one day, but we don't need to
Money
go there.
martyrs.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, exactly. So then for you, then, when you think about the new story, I was on a leadership call today and there was, it was around a different well, actually, we did talk about money in that context, but it was like the leader was sharing, she goes, I want us all to create, like, not necessarily, we still have our stories, but could you create something different where now it becomes part of your story,
Mhm.
right? It's like an additional chapters to your story. So, here's Elsa's story about, how she struggled with being healthy meant it was going to cost money, and then spending money was going to make you sick. Like, here's this story. So can we now move into an additional chapter that we're now going to create, that we're going to call in, that we're going to bring forth? What would that chapter look like?
Hmm. I'm like, actually, it's like this is PG-13. We're gonna
Oh,
R-rated, R-rated, definitely.
I'm going to have to make sure this podcast is R-rated.
Explicit,
Listen to this
explicit
one.
people. I want my relationship with money to just be like absolutely ecstasy and pleasure.
Hmm, okay.
I
I
want to
can
be able to look at my
I
bank
can do that.
account. Yeah, look at my bank accounts and go, fuck yes, all of my needs are met. And how can I share this? How can I take this pleasure and ecstasy and, whether it's just through time or at the actual resource exchange of money. Here is a check for $6,000, animal shelter. Oh my God, YMCA, let me host this free workshop, for a week to help the kids and do the things. And oh, like that's I know I'm not alone in this, and I think it's so funny that those of us who, and again, because you can look at our especially past life and ancestral history when you speak to this of like, I want to have money so I can give it away. I want to have money so I
Exactly.
can help people. And those tend to be really rich past lives of, being healers, being, kind of that wounded healer type capacity, or martyr, or you have to give away your gifts for free and whatnot and stuff, or you had money and you lost it. There's so many different past life experiences that we can have that really kind of have that be a value of the soul, though. And I think that I also too, like in mind, this new story of like, I want money to be pleasure and ecstasy of I'm really inviting the soul in though.
Hmm.
My soul in this life to go, hey, we've been through enough shit at this point, not just with money, but the rest of our life that we've experienced thus far. Can we please begin to write the chapters together where form and soul are so fulfilled, enriched, that money doesn't only just feed and nourish me physically and mentally and emotionally, but also on the soul level of allowing this neutral entity and energy of money to go, wow, look at the ripple effect that it can have for the soul mission that I'm choosing to live in this lifetime.
Hmm. I love it. I love it. And
Mhm.
I find it actually really fascinating that you're sharing that piece, because right now, there's a community that we belong to, and so many of the women within that community are really stepping into that power and calling in that energy right now. And I always say you put the money in the hands of, women and men who truly from the heart space really want to collectively help the collective. Oh
Mhm.
my gosh, like we can definitely move mountains. There's just so much that we can do. And so
Mhm.
I'm really noticing that within the container of this community that we all belong to, it's like we're all finding ourselves in this container, and we are all just all really just we're done with our stories, the old stories. We're ready to add new chapters, and we are ready to like fucking put the world on fire. Let's do it.
Yeah. And that's just it's for references or for whatever reason this is coming up. But I just if you do you guys have the TV show Parks and Recreation in Canada? It's not
I'm
on
not
anymore.
familiar with it.
It's really funny. You should watch it. It's like half an hour episodes. But Amy Poehler is one of the main characters in it, and she's just this like help the town, really good, like civil servant, all these things and stuff. She's the leader of the Parks and Recreation department. in this town, and at one point she has to ask like the sheriff for a favor, and the sheriff goes like, you have all the favors you need. And the gentleman who was with Amy Poehler goes like, "Whoa, like, well, why? Thank you." And he goes, "Because she'll take all those any favor I give her and use it for others."
Mm,
Like
beautiful.
that's the energy of money and making money and receiving and exchanging and letting money flow
Yeah.
that I want to occupy, that some of these, people in our community want to occupy of, yeah, the money that I receive, like, these favor, from Parks and Rec, standpoint, but this money that we are asking and desiring to receive is so that we can help others.
Yep. Totally. Totally. I remember being at convention last fall, and when you go to a convention, there's a lot of rah rah and it's very inspirational and all that stuff. And I remember being asked by Amy, which is one of our beautiful soul sisters that is also participating in this money series. And I remember her asking me, like, what would you do with a six-figure income yearly or whatever? What would you do with that, Carol? And I remember immediately, like, there was no question. It was, I'd probably give it all away,
Mm.
in some fashion, in some way to help,
Yeah.
right? Like, I'd probably give it all away. I would keep what I need and then some, a little bit, and then I would probably give
Mhm.
the rest of it away. And I remember her saying, "Yeah, well, you can do that." Like, and I was just like, "Yeah, I could do that." Oh, like, yeah, I can do that. And oh my goodness, why wouldn't I want to do that?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, why
Yeah,
wouldn't
I
I
mean,
want to do that? Why do I have to get stuck in my own money story? And can I not create a money story that 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 has a evolution, that has a transformation, a metamorphosis? Like, that's what I want to do. Like, I want to make money so I can give it away in ways in which you're going to help the community, right? And if you would have asked me that even 3 years ago, I would have said, no, I want to make money for me. Right? But I
yeah.
still, because we so quickly dip into the scarcity set, and we look at our own finances and we look at what we need, and we're not making enough or whatever be the story. And so we get caught up in that. And we do need to take care of our self needs so that we can get
Mhm.
to a place where we can help take care of others. But we just get stuck there.
Yeah.
It becomes what you were sharing earlier. It's like, when I got really good at a job, then next thing you know, like, my bosses weren't happy because I was doing so good, and then next thing you know, I was out the door, right? It sort of becomes that space where we make enough money to be comfortable, or just enough, or maybe just a bit
Mhm.
short of, and then we stop there. It's like there's where the wall caves in, and we can't seem to break the barrier of that. And what I find really fascinating is that when we really sit with it, is like, we are the ones giving the power to money. And so
Like we built that wall. We put that
we
wall
yeah,
there.
we put that wall there. So we just need to either break it down, walk through it, crawl underneath it, walk around it. Like, maybe your wall's made out of
Roll it
paper.
up.
You need to, like,
Yeah.
bust through it, right? So yeah, I find it also very fascinating, and it's been so much fun. So just coming to a close then, Elsa, like, what would be tips or insight or something that you want to share with our listeners today as to help them move past that barrier, if you will, like those that are feeling you, and share maybe some similar stories with you? Like, what is it that you could share with them that would be helpful?
First thing that comes up is I don't feel qualified to give money tips. And that's
Yeah,
okay. That is
yeah.
okay. That is not yet my zone of genius. And I guess that would be the tip though, is
Mm.
that seek support. If you're sitting there with a shit money relationship and going, fuck, I need to change this. I need to do something. Because also too, we've been taught to not talk about our money stories. Don't talk about it. That's between you and money and your bank accounts. Like shut up.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's okay to talk about it, but it's okay. to find someone that you can talk about this with. It doesn't mean you have to, and whether that means getting together with some friends and just bitching about it,
Mhm.
but also don't just bitch about it. Okay. Like we just did this exercise the other day, and it was like, if my sentence to myself is I'm done being broke, well, how about I journal on all the ways that I cannot be broke?
Mhm.
Just to get it out. And everything from, oh, I could save money by doing X, Y, and Z. Oh, I could sell feet pictures. Oh, I could do these other things just to get it out, to create that space for your eyes, your body, your nervous system to go, there's options.
Mhm.
And then you filter back through and go, oh, this option resonates. That one doesn't, this does, that doesn't. Oh, I can save here. I actually can't save there.
Mhm.
Um, those are just a really fun way to, if money's neutral energy, what can we do to meet it at neutral?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, that vibration, at that frequency, how do we
yep,
tap into that field? Yeah.
yeah. So I tell people, I work, for those who don't know, I work with horses and humans and developing their relationships. And I tell people all the time with their horses, I go, if you're in a training setting with your horse, well, one, you need to know your emotions going into the session because you have to be responsible and accountable for them. And two, if you're in a session and something happens where all of a sudden the emotion is the driving force of the session, you got to step back because now neither you nor your horse are communicating.
Mm.
In that space of actual connection, it's like, oh, I'm angry. Conflict resolution does not mean you get angry too. It means you come down, you breathe, you ground, you create space. Cool. Money's already neutral. That means it's just up to me to see where my emotions at with it and go 3, 2, 1, come down. It might not be 3, 2, 1. It might be 126,000 down to one. It might take a long time to get there. So those are my tips. Find a space that you feel comfortable and safe being seen and talking about it and bitching about it. But then be actionable in your space to go, well, it is up to me because money's not going to do anything about it.
Mm.
Money's already neutral. And how can I meet it at neutral?
That's beautiful. For someone who didn't think they were qualified to give some
I know. I was
advice,
like,
that is beautiful advice.
doing some good shit. I need to go do that myself after this.
Yeah, we do need to practice what we preach, right? What we share, what we
Absolutely.
teach. So that's actually
Yep.
all that I always say to people, we always teach what we need to learn. So it's all good, all good.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's a beautiful way to end, and I really want to thank you so much for sharing sacred space with me and sharing your money stories for the very first time, vocalizing them, and even in that step, we know that that's a big step into the healing journey of healing that story. So we really, really want to thank you so much, Elsa, for being really allowing yourself to be vulnerable and sharing your stories. So thank you so much, and I hope that all the listeners take something beautiful away from this share today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.